That was our report.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't have the remote where he can just like click.
No
click, click.
remote. All right. So today I'd like to discuss with y'all one of the articles we went over in my business ethics class, which focuses on management and specifically on what is a good leadership. That's the name of the article. And some of the things that it goes over in the article is about how early in the article it goes into how people focus on the vanity of leadership when it deals in the past with kings and queens and monarchies. But in nowadays, it's aiming at what makes a good leadership. Is it technical? Is it ethical? And how do leaderships handle the morality of their situations? There's a lot of cases when people look to leaders for that moral high ground, but in actuality, what they're looking for is for leaderships to be held at the same standards as themselves. They present certain situations where some leaders think they're above people. Case in point was the main head at Tyco that was busted in the 90s for embezzling money of sorts. So the article generally brings a consensus that we try to find ethical and moral leaders, but there is a lot of dilemmas in that. So my question is to you is an overall impression of what I presented to you from this article, quickly skimming over it, is what you think makes a good leader. What kind of qualities do you think should be? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I think one big quality is like wanting to promote the overall well-being of the people underneath you. So if you see them struggling with something, you try to help overcome that. And the second thing is also, if there's any accomplishments they accomplished, like you don't take credit for it, you give the people below you the proper credit for it as well. So you're not like stealing credit for something that you personally didn't do yourself.
What say you?
I say it's a vision and being able to be able to relay that vision to the people who are following you. It's like you can't. If you're gonna, and based on what you were saying from the article, it's like people are. If you're gonna have situations where people get corrupted by the power that they have. It doesn't mean they're a good or bad leader. It's just they got into a situation and they made a decision that just spiraled.
Okay.
Good leaders are not infallible. Good leaders work within that strife and continue forward.
Okay. So with the ideas of what you think makes a good leader, or you think builds good leadership, how would you say you came to that conclusion from what stuff in your own past? With your aim of what your idea is for good leadership. One of the things that the article points out, if it can help, is altruism, which is the motive of acting. And some of the things they presented was like leaders of terrorist group. They might have an idea to act for some good, but their act of good is not technically or morally right. Whereas people like MLK and Gandhi, their act was for good and what they did was good. So
Yeah.
that is one thing that's presented in the article, and one thing.
And even with
I see as
even
good.
with MLK and Gandhi, they still had fringe elements
Yes.
that took it just a little too far, and you can't.
So how would you say you came to your perspective of leadership through your years of seeing leaders in action?
More of a personal experience from what I've gone through with the Boy Scout, doing stuff with Boy Scouts, being stuff active duty, because part of a lot of Marine Corps boot camp is focus on learning leadership and learning the various things of what make good and respected leaders. There's a lot of historical documents from various Marines who've done things that had them be as leaders. Chesty Puller, Dan Daly, a lot of them. And it's the biggest things were knowing who's underneath you, who's with you, and helping them and knowing yourself. Because if you don't know your own flaws, how can you criticize others?
What say you, Jameson?
No, I say my perspective probably comes from just like articles I've read and like my own personal experience. Like I would say I've been probably relatively lucky if having most of the people who have been my boss have been relatively good. Like I haven't had any bosses constantly yelling at me saying I'm doing a terrible job. So I think I'm pretty lucky with that. But I've definitely read that there have been leaders out there, people in charge who do that to people underneath them, and that's just demoralizing when you don't feel like the person above you has your best interest and doesn't have any sort of interest in you growing as a person.
Okay. So would you say that in your field of work and just your interaction with different leaders throughout the years, do you think they should be held to some kind of moral standards? Before you answer that, I'll present with the one thing they mention in the article is about moral consistency. They do provide with the fact that leaders have this kind of moral consistency hanging over their head constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I pointed out,
more of a public figure
Yeah.
you are, the more.
the one thing I pulled out of this is with moral consistency is bring about change, but with a public perception of good. So with that said, so when you the perspective you built on with your own idea of leadership, do you think morality is a basis for that too?
Yeah.
Or is it something that the article might has construed about combining morality with leadership?
I would say yes, because there was an individual who at first I respected because of what they've accomplished in the business community with the companies they started, and then recently and they went off and started another company, and a friend brought it to my attention about this company and thought I'd be a good fit to work with them, and my reaction was, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole, because I have no faith or trust in the person at the top of that particular business.
Okay.
So no need to name names, but I'm sure we can all draw the dots on that. But there was even when I did worked for a local franchisee with a fast food place, he did exactly that. He belittled everyone who worked under him, worked them to the bone, and then wondered why there was always a shortage and had a hard time finding people. And he ultimately, because of those bad ethics, in my opinion, he ended up losing all of his franchises. Because corporate came in and took them all away because he was not running them very well, because he was trying to skim every penny and working everybody to death. So.
No, I definitely think that makes sense. I mean, morale, I think, should play a big part of that. I mean, you don't want to work for someone who, thinks, stab you in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think if you're doing something wrong, you're not thinking. I think there should be the expectation you don't want things to be fixed, so they should bring it up in a polite manner as well. I definitely know someone where I work years ago where there was definitely public shaming in meetings for a department. Just really overall low morale from the whole entire team. Eventually, the particular leader was let go, and I think the entire team had a party. They were pretty freaking happy, and so someone else came in and was much better off. So definitely, I think there should be. I definitely think whatever morals I have definitely will impact the entire team.
Yeah.
Because definitely whatever the morals I have, they're going to display that towards the team.
Okay. So with these kind of conflicts and issues that have happened,
Mm-hmm.
not with you particular, but in overall with the idea of leadership, how do you think good leadership can be built out of these kind of fragile events if you want to aim for better leadership going forward?
Well, just even seeing bad leadership, that gives you an idea of what to look out for yourself if you yourself try to become a leader. Also, I think it'd be helpful also if you see something bad to try to do something to fix it. If you see, I think sometimes a leader may be doing something bad they may not necessarily realize. So if you could point it out to them, it gives them a chance to fix it, right? So just like you maybe do something wrong, you want to be notified that something's wrong, you can give them an opportunity to fix it themselves. You know, I also think that, actually I have no clue where I was going to go with that thought.
That's fine. What say you?
No, I was following up with that. It's like, yeah, you see someone, if you see someone whose leadership style seems to conflict with your impression of leadership, if they're approachable to point that out, it's where if they're seeking self-improvement. The problem is sometimes you'll think you're trying to be a good team player by helping them, and they're not going to be receptive to that.
Okay.
So then they'll take it against you. So that could be a negative. But certain situations, as far as just it's what's the character of the person involved? Are they
Yeah.
do they own up to it? Do they try to sweep it under the rug? Do they sit there and blame someone else? You got a lot of that, and a lot of, well, especially with stuff in the media for leadership in high-profile companies. It's like, or high-profile groups, whether there was something in the news not too long ago about Eliza Duku and Michael Weatherly from the show Bull. She was in there, but she didn't like the work environment, and Michael Weatherly used his influence with CBS, and she got fired from the show. And it's like, that's not good leadership. That's, you know. And they tried to sweep it under the rug.
Okay. That's very true. Okay. So, just to end this discussion, the overall, y'all had two very good points on what you see what should be a good leadership. So, I would like to end it with, if you were ever to move into that leadership kind of role, how would you believe to mold the idea of a good leader? How would you mold yourself as a good leader? If you're like a CEO, a CIO, president of something.
I would trust the people who specialize in things. I would listen. And then I would try to build that a level of trust where it's like if they confide in me, I will try for their best interest. Personally, I don't believe in making myself look better at the expense of someone else.
Okay. What about you, Jameson?
No, to your point, I agree. Like I said earlier, like definitely it would be definitely a good idea to give someone credit for stuff they've done. I definitely would want to try to make sure that whatever goals they have, to try to reach them the best they can. I mean, even if it's a short-term thing, like, you know, they may be under me, but only temporary, so they can get someplace else. Definitely try to see if we can work some way out to benefit both them and me. Like, you know, benefit me and I guess the whatever company we're for. So we both have some mutual gain in that.
Okay.
Because I definitely think that someone else will definitely respect you a lot more if, you know, you respect them in return.
Okay.
So.
Alright, I thank you for the time. Some good ideas, and I'll just end it on one of the things they mentioned in the article is at the end, when they wrap it up, they did mention one thing is like what they said is leadership requires a mixture of confidence and humility.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thank you for the time.
Yeah.